He tried to keep his eyes focused, but his vision reeled, the colours wrong and fading. The ship was in the neck and dead, but just then the keel scraped a mud shoal. The shock turned her head. The rudder bit into the sea. And then the wind and the sea joined to help, and together they spun her before the wind, and she sped through the pass to safety, into the bay beyond. Part 1. Chapter 1. Blackthorne was suddenly awake. For a moment he thought he was dreaming because he was ashore and the room unbelievable. It was small and very clean and covered with soft mats. He was lying on a thick quilt, and another was thrown over him. The ceiling was polished cedar, and the walls were laths of cedar, in squares, covered with an opaque paper that muted the light pleasantly. Beside him was a scarlet tray bearing small bowls. One contained cold-cooked vegetables, and he wolfed them, hardly noticing the piquant taste. Another contained a fish soup, and he drained that. Another was filled with a thick porridge of wheat or barley, and he finished it quickly, eating with his fingers. The water in an odd-shaped gourd was warm and tasted curious, slightly bitter but savoury. Then he noticed the crucifix in its niche. "This house is Spanish, or Portuguese," he thought, aghast. "Is this the Japan's, or Cathay?" A panel of the wall slid open. A middle-aged, heavy-set, round-faced woman was on her knees beside the door, and she bowed and smiled. Her skin was golden, and her eyes black and narrow, and her long black hair was piled neatly on her head. She wore a grey silk robe and short white socks with a thick sole, and a wide purple band around her waist. "Go Shujin-sama, go kibun wa ikaga desu ka?" she said. She waited as he stared at her blankly, then said it again. "Is this the Japan's?" he asked. "Japan's, or Cathay?" She stared at him uncomprehendingly and said something else he could not understand. Then he realized that he was naked. His clothes were nowhere in sight. With sign language, he showed her that he wanted to get dressed. Then he pointed at the food bowls, and she knew that he was still hungry. She smiled and bowed and slid the door shut. He lay back, exhausted, the untoward, nauseating non-motion of the floor making his head spin. With an effort, he tried to collect himself. "I remember getting the anchor out," he thought. "With Vink. I think it was Vink. We were in a bay and the ship had nosed a shoal and stopped. We could hear waves breaking on the beach, but everything was safe. There were lights ashore, and then I was in my cabin and blackness. I don't remember